If you're a fan of board games, RPGs or strategy games, then For the King should have you covered. Thank you for choosing SwitchedOn. My name is Paul, and I'm going to let you know who I think this game is best aimed at from that list I just mentioned, but also let you know of one major issue with this game in my review of For the King on the Nintendo Switch. Okay, let's get the target audience questions sorted out pretty quickly. If you're looking for a board game-like experience on your Switch, then For the King definitely leans more that way. Many times during my play, I was taken back to my tabletop gaming days I loved so dear. If you've played something like Mage Knight, then you should be really satisfied here. The RPG and turn-based combat parts of the game could really have been lifted straight from a tabletop game, and even more so than something like Armello, which is a similar kind of game on the Switch. For the King doesn't lean too much on video game crutches. So much so, I could very easily see how it would translate to a physical board game. The main campaign kicks off with the news of King Bronner's death, and the Queen tasks the citizens of Fahrul to search the land for his killer and the sources of chaos that envelop the land. Each play of a campaign, of which there are 5 single player ones to choose from and 1 multiplayer campaign, will see the same main quest story presented to you each time you start that quest, but the layout of the land will be randomised with towns, locations and enemies procedurally generated with each new adventure. Regardless of which campaign you choose, you'll always take control of 3 adventurers, either alone or with up to 2 other players, locally or online, which is an awesome feature for a game like this, and again feeds into that board game feel of being around a table and all cooperating in the adventure. Now, does this work well as a multiplayer game on the Switch? Well, stick around and I will let you know shortly. After creating your characters from a small selection of initial classes and customization options, you take to the board. Pretty much everything in the game is driven by dice rolls, and this is represented by chance slots on your character sheet. For example, each character has a movement stat indicating how many hexes they can move each turn. If this stat is a 5, for example, then 5 chance slots will be shown on screen, and for each slot a die is rolled and either a success or failure is marked in the slot. If you roll 3 successes and 2 failures, then you'll be allowed to move up to 3 spaces for that turn. This mechanic carries on through most elements of the game, from movement to combat and casting spells to sneaking past enemies. This is usually all tucked away behind the scenes in most games, like some sort of dirty secret, but For the King brings it out front and centre for everyone to stare at. Every decision has you on the edge of your seat. You can mitigate some of the randomness by spending limited focus points to fill in successes on the chance slots, which is another interesting choice the player has to make each turn. As you move around the land, the map slowly reveals itself from underneath the fog, revealing forests, mines and statues to worship. Enemies, for the most part, are also visible on the map, but you can also stumble across them when you pass through a hex they were hidden in, along with other treasures and points of interest. Visiting towns will allow you to rest and restock supplies, as well as take on side quests from local townsfolk too lazy to do it themselves. Now then, remember that major issue I spoke about at the start? Well, it revolves around these quests and side quests. There's no easy way to see where you need to go on the map to complete them. Pressing B will cycle through the open quests and zoom the camera to the location on the map, but in doing so means you now can't see your party's location, which makes it super annoying to work out which direction you need to head in. This could have been resolved with a simple list of quests on a bigger map, which also shows your party's location. And this is one of a few unfortunate UI issues, with very small text throughout the game, some clunky controls to navigate the myriad of options, and an over-reliance on symbolism in the game. Once you get a few hours into the game, a lot of these issues do tend to resolve themselves, as your reliance at looking at the help text becomes less and less, and you learn which each of the symbols mean. But it's still a shame that it causes such a steep learning curve in the first few hours. Whilst some UI problems do exist, thankfully everything else in the game looks great. From the low poly models, which suit the style of the game really well and look almost like real board game miniature models, to the landscape which feels alive and full of character. Another nice touch is how collecting loot from fallen foes, hidden chests or just spending hard-found gold in shops you stumble across actually changes the look of your character model with different clothing, helmets and weapons, meaning a massive degree of customization is available. You'll need all of this gear as you face off with a wide variety of beasts on your travels, in turn-based combat. Each character has a few attacks in their arsenal based on their current equipped weapon, and diligent swapping of these will be needed when enemies offer resistance to certain types of attack. As with movement, the level of damage you do in an attack is determined by that dicey, rolly, chancy system. If you take on a mob too high a level, there's a strong chance you will perish. Now, losing a single character isn't too sad, as you have a limited number of revives available, but if you lose all 3 characters in a battle, your adventure will end and it will be time to start anew. During an adventure run, you will accumulate a currency called lore, and it's at this point between runs you can spend some of that lore to unlock a wide variety of items with new characters, to weapons, and even new locations. These will permanently be added to any future runs, and in those can show up randomly at any point. Now, just before I get to scoring, I'd like to say if you enjoyed this review, then please consider subscribing to SwitchedOn. Cheeky little plug there. Now, I did mention multiplayer earlier, and this is integrated really nicely with plenty of online games available since launch, and the option to either jump in with randoms or password protect a game to play with friends is great. Be warned though, each run of a game can take anything from 30 minutes to a few hours to play, although thankfully there is an option to save your online game and resume later, which is perfect for those quick sessions with your mates. So then, overall, I really liked For the King a huge amount, and to be honest, from the trailers, I wasn't really fancying it. Its low poly art style won me over, and its procedurally generated maps and encounters keep each run fresh, and the chance system with that focus option really keeps every element of the game interesting. There are some minor moments of slowdown, but they really don't impact the game much, and besides the UI issues, especially keeping track of quests and the tiny text being little niggles that could be improved, there's a hell of a lot to like in For the King, and I'm going to be scoring it an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching the review, guys, really appreciate it, and if you did like this and want more reviews of Nintendo Switch games, big and small, then please drop me a subscribe below, and if you already have this game, let me know how your quests have gone and what characters you like to use. And if you haven't got this one, do you like board games? Just let me know below if you played any tabletop games and RPGs that might remind you of this. Okay, with that said, I will catch you on the next video. Plenty of reviews to come, so keep your eyes peeled, and I'll see you next time. Cheers guys, bye bye.